Assamese Demonology by Benyadar Rajkawa. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. Preface. Like all other countries under the heavens, Assam has her indigenous ghosts. These pages are an attempt to describe their ways and habits according to popular belief, with a view that they may be profitably used by all seekers after truth, the spiritualist and the mystic. They are a faithful record of what has fallen from the lips of the populace without the slightest varnish of my own. The Assamese are a Hindu race and as such believe in the numerous Sanskrit deities of the heavens. Some of these deities have been, however, degraded to the position of hobgoblins. Others have been hurled from their proud, unapproachable region and placed in the rank and file of the spirit kingdom. The pure celestial deities may be passed over in this treatise, and those alone will be noticed who have anything to do in the arena of human life in their ordinary spheres. The astrological bodies, again, will not come under my review. There are both benign and malign spirits, as well as indifferent ones. Some of the spirits exercise double functions, while others do not. It is a striking fact that the generality of the Assamese spirits are malignant. B.R. Sibsagar, October 1904. Introduction. The author has asked me to write a brief introduction for his little book, and I do so gladly. The subject is a most interesting one, and although the author does not claim to have dealt with it on scientific lines, his pages will repay perusal. The book is a faithful record of popular beliefs in Assam in all their original quaintness, and for such a task it would not be easy to find anyone better qualified than the author. W. J. Reed, Kohima, Assam, September 27, 1904. 1. An account of spirits. It is impossible to attempt any classification of spirits, much less one based on natural history. I may, however, for the satisfaction of my readers, without entering into the niceties of distinction, lay down broadly the following 4 territorial classes. 1. Subterranean. 2. Terrestrial. 3. Aerial. 4. Celestial. Terrestrial includes A. Aqueous, B. Silvan, C. Household. By far, the largest number of spirits known to the Assamese fall under heading 2. I begin with this class. A. Aqueous spirits. Baak, Dot, Jak, Datsiel or Jankikoria, Jelshai, and Jelnararian. 1. Baak. He is fond of fish. His body emits an offensive smell which is translated to the very water over which he wanders. He catches fish by netting. He lives in a deserted tank. There is an Assamese proverb which runs thus: a jackal is the lord of poultry. A Baak is supreme in a deserted tank. 2. Dot. The word is derived from Sanskrit Daitya, a demon. Of all the spirits, the Dot is most heard of among the Assamese. He leads people by all manner of inducements to any out-of-the-way place, and there deals merciless blows on them. He, however, seldom kills a man. Sometimes he is known to visit a man at dawn in the form of a familiar friend and leads him to the watercourse, where he had set up his fishing trap the preceding evening on the pretext of seeing if any fish have got in. But alas, the victim finds, when it is too late, that he has to deal with a most ungrateful wretch of a chum. The Dot is a slender but tall figure, measuring about 18 feet, with long fingers like spikes. He lives in channels, tanks, morasses, shaded out-of-the-way places overgrown with watery plants. He is jet black in appearance, naked, and has several limbs of the body indistinguishable, except the fingers which he exposes very prominently in order to frighten his victim. He lives also in the midst of a bamboo grove. His body is exceedingly glutinous and has thus an advantage over his victim in a wrestle. Of all things, that which is most dreaded by the dot is mustard grain. It is for this fact that mustard plays so important a part in the ceremonies of exorcism. I presume it is avoided by the spirit, himself a glutinous body, on account of its slippery qualities which elude all attempts at a fast hold. The dot manifests himself first as an ordinary man, but gradually grows higher and higher till he vanishes altogether. The victim, at this sight, is frightened out of his wits, and the spirit, taking advantage of his weakness of nerve, at once possesses him. Sometimes he actually clasps the man in his arms and carries him off when he is solitary. The dot's hair hangs about his head, neglected and disordered. The hair of the female dot is similarly disheveled. She puts on tattered clothes. In the sight of his wife, the dot never dares to maltreat his victim. In her absence, he beats him mercilessly and sometimes forces his head into mud in a deserted tank, keeping his legs suspended in air. The dot neighs like a horse. He is powerless to approach a righteous man, much less do him any injury. Like Baak, the dot is also a lover of fish. He is afraid of a fishhook and a reaping sickle. Of all the accompaniments of dot that are mentioned, the most curious is his spectral bag. This he always carries about under his armpit. It is by virtue of this bag that he exercises superhuman powers. Without it, he is but an ordinary mortal. It may be observed that a man sometimes succeeds in snatching this bag by force or inducement, and he thereupon places it for safety in a granary of mustard. Bereft of his wonderful talisman, the dot loses all powers and becomes a bound servant to the man. He works then like an ordinary human servant. He plows the field of his master and faithfully does all other works that may be entrusted to him. But all the time he is on the lookout for his spectral bag, and when, by an ingenious trick played in the absence of his master, on the good wife, he manages to get it, at once he regains his powers and departs, whistling merrily to his home, to the bewilderment of his outwitted mistress. The spectral bag is made of net cloth. In every other respect, it has the appearance of an ordinary bag used by the Assamese for keeping their betel leaves and areca nuts. Little folks are seen here and there to wear about their necks a fishing hook to scare away the dot. 3. Jak. He is a terrible spirit. He kills his victim by gnawing into his vital parts. He assumes the form of a large buffalo and splashes the water with his horns. He is sometimes seen roaming about in the company of domestic buffaloes. It is the buffalo herds who generally have encounters with this spirit or devil. A man under his possession bellows like a buffalo. This spirit is named Ma Jak, Ma meaning a buffalo, to distinguish it from an ordinary jak. There is another kind of jak called Bioi Jak, which possesses a woman in childbirth. 4. Datil or Jankakaria. Datil literally means living on the beach, while Jankakaria means living on the bank of a channel. This spirit lives near watercourses. He is a pagan spirit and is beyond the influence of incantations. 5. Jalshai and Jalnarian. These two brother spirits preside over water, as their names imply. Unlike a Datil or Jankakaria, they are both Hindus by religion and do not murder a man, though they may punish him for transgressions. Jalkwar. This is a spirit who presides over rivers. He corresponds to the Sanskrit god Varuna. B. Silvan spirits. Chaman and Bura Dangaria. 1. Chaman. He is noted for taciturnity. For this peculiar trait in his character, he is always associated with the appellation dumb. When possessed by him, a man loses all power of speech. The name Chaman is derived from the cham tree, his usual place of resort. He is also found in Nahor or similar big trees in a deep forest. When a man happens to cut a branch of the tree or pass urine under it, he is at once possessed. 2. Bura Dangaria. Bura Dengaria is a title of respect applied to an elderly Assamese gentleman. This spirit wears a magnificent turban like an Assamese gentleman, and hence the name. Besides the turban, he wears a wrapper. A dhuti hangs down below his waist. His clothes are white as marble. He is tall in stature, strongly built, and looks like a full-blossomed rose. Of all the spirits, it is Bura Dengaria who is most religiously disposed. He attends at all religious assemblies among men. Nobody can, with impunity, fell a tree haunted by Bura Dengaria without propitiating him. The offenders are scourged with bodily ailments. Sometimes it so happens that the tree which is cut without propitiating Bura Dengaria maintains its inertia and never moves no matter what amount of force is brought to bear on it. 3. Alakani. This is a female spirit. She lives in the midst of a bamboo grove under a plant like a mushroom. This plant is about 8 inches high and is called in Assamese Alakani Ba, or the cell of Alakani. She is a frolicsome imp. Out she goes trippingly on pleasure excursions and possesses any man whom she happens to come across. The female Alakani deals more frequently with men than the male one. The male imp, as might be expected, is more cruel and subjects his victim to extreme agony. 4. Pisach. He lives in out-of-the-way, filthy quarters. 5. Fisiani. The word is a corruption of Pisachani, or female Pisach, but is really applicable to a different spirit in no way connected with her. The spirit to which the word refers is execrable. She secretes her spittle, a frothy liquid, upon the leaf of a plant. Her spittle is a nuisance and is carefully avoided by men. When it perchances touches any part of the body, there starts up immediately a cluster of fulsome itches. 6. Dainee. The word is derived from the Sanskrit Jokhini, an attendant of the goddess Kali. She is a female spirit. Her chief characteristic is greediness. She is a cannibal. Her greediness being at the highest tension, her mouth waters and the lower lip protrudes as soon as she happens to see a man in front. 7. Parrot. On the death of a man, the soul wanders about aimlessly for some time before a permanent abode is allotted to it. During this period is known as parrot. A man under the possession of this spirit suffers from itches, boils, etc. He bears a disfigured body and a dejected mind. Hence, any slovenly or melancholiac person has come to be known by the word paritya, affected by parrot. 8. Bhoot. It is worthy of notice that sometimes Bhoot is used as a generic term and includes all kinds of spirits. But there is also a specific class named Bhoot. They are skilled in changing shapes. 9. Qatar. The word comes from the Sanskrit Ketra, a field which again is an abbreviation of Ketrapala, a presiding spirit of the field. This spirit lives in an open place. He deals particularly with little folks. A large number of children are annually carried off by him. There is another class of Qatar whose business is to take off a newborn calf and keep it concealed. If, however, as a precautionary measure, a quantity of the milk of the cow thickened by heating be parceled off and bits put on the ears, neck, and loins of the calf of its mother, the Qatar eats them, and being satisfied, he desists from his mischievous designs. 10. Markuchya. He spoils a child in the womb of its mother. This generally happens in the 3rd or 4th month of pregnancy. The spirit possesses a girl if she happens to get her first menstruation in an inauspicious moment. If the spirit fails to spoil the child in the womb, he pursues it further and torments it in numerous ways when it is born. 11. Prasuta. This is a female spirit. She possesses a pregnant woman. 12. Khanda. He is a horrible demon with headless trunk and 2 furious eyes set upon the breast. He lives on the seashore. He wanders about in the country at night and returns to his home at the approach of dawn. He makes frequent awful shrieks from his windpipe during his nightly wanderings. The word Kanda is derived from the Sanskrit Kabanda, an order of spiritual beings. 13. Bira. Biras are said to be a class of Cathars, but more dreadful. It is very hard to save a man from the grip of this monster. 14. Panimangali. A person when possessed by this spirit is seized with fever which grows severe in the end. The spirit at this stage breaks some of his victim's limbs and leaves him alone. The victim now finds to his chagrin that though his fever is no more, he is a crippled man. 15. Parua. This is a sprightly female spirit. She amuses herself at the meeting of three roads and leads wayfarers astray if she happens to meet with any. She plays on a musical instrument called taka, which the Assamese girls use, the sound being distinctly audible by men. The traveler, losing his way, mistakes her voice for that of a man in a distant place and follows it only to find himself forlorn and lost the more, there being none to welcome him. When she wishes to lead a man away, she creates a thick mist all around him, which makes him see everything indistinct and lose his way. I fancy Parua is a corruption of the Sanskrit pari, a nymph. 16. Kabis. He is a Mohammedan spirit, but is found occasionally to possess a Hindu. 17. Talgiri, or Talasi. Every locality has a presiding spirit of its own called Talgiri, master of land, or Talasi, god of land. C. Household spirits. Garduate. 1. Garduate. The word literally means light of the house. This is a benign female spirit who presides over a man's house. She is heard to make ticking sounds in the house. When a man happens to sleep at night across the doorway, she treads on his body on her way out of or into the house, and the man feels the treading as that of a cat passing over him. 3. Aerial spirit. Bardachila. 1. Bardachila. She is a female spirit and lives with her husband in a far-off land. She visits her parents' home, which lies in this part of the country, once a year to enjoy the national festival of Baak Bihu. She returns when the Bihu is ended. We have thus in Assam 2 strong gales, one just before and the other just after the Bihu, occasioned by the flight of the airy spirit on her journey to and from her parents' home. When she comes in, as can naturally be expected, she is serene and delightful, but on her return voyage she becomes turbulent. Thus, the preceding gale is harmless, while the after gale is destructive, overthrowing trees, raising houses, and doing other mischief. 4. Celestial spirits. Shiva, Jam, Bikaram, Durga, Kalika, Deo, Lakshmi, Bijuli. 1. Shiva. He is the great Sanskrit god and worshipped as such. Besides exercising the functions assigned to him by the Vedas, he is supposed by the Assamese to preside over elephants. The keepers have to propitiate him when these beasts are visited with any disaster. This belief may have taken root from the mythical Hindu tale that Ganesh, Shiva's son, was a god with the head of an elephant. Shiva and his wife are also regarded as nuptial deities. 2. Jam. He is the Sanskrit god of death. He rides on a buffalo. His legs are believed by the Assamese to be heavy with elephantitis. 3. Bikaram. The word is derived from the Sanskrit Biswakarmi, the heavenly architect. He is best known by Assamese women who show great reverence for him. He presides over the weaving looms which they hold so dear. 4. Durga. She is the wife of Shiva and a familiar deity among the Assamese. She causes measles or smallpox. When a man is seized by her, Regular services are held by a number of women to propitiate her. There are numerous other names by which she is known among them. For example, Sitala, Mahamaya, Bhagawati, Ai, etc. The vernacular name for smallpox is Ai Oloa, the visitation of the mother. 5. Kalika. This is another name of the goddess Kali, but her function as Kalika is of a different order. She resides in anything grand, a man or an animal, or even an inanimate thing for the matter of that, a spotless righteous soul, an unusually tall portly individual, a grand beautiful feathered peacock, a bearded majestic lion, an awful gigantic tusker, an overhanging huge stone, a turbulent river, the foremost fish in the shoal, traveling upstream during the rains. These and such like are the usual resorts of Kalika. 5. Deo. Deo is a vulgar term for the goddess Kali. Under her inspiration, a man who is then called a Deo is imbued with a high amount of enthusiasm. During this period, he is endowed with the power of presaging future events. Pigeons, ducks, and goats are sacrificed to the Deo, who actually drinks their blood. 6. Lakshmi. She is the same as Lakshmi, the Sanskrit goddess of plenty. She resides in a house where peace and purity reign. She resides also in a rice field. In fact, she is identified with rice itself. The first chaff of the crop is carried and deposited in the granary with a ceremony befitting the goddess. 7. Apakari. She is the Sanskrit Apshari, a celestial nymph. She sends punishment to a man for his transgressions. The person under the ban becomes weaker every day until she is propitiated. Hence, she is named Withering Apakari. It would be an offense to tread on the shadow, which falls on the earth but cannot be seen by mortal eyes, of an Apakari in the heaven, and the offender would be punished, as above, for doing so. 8. Bijuli. Bijuli is the goddess of lightning. She is a passingly handsome maiden, and the lightning is the flash of her inimitable naked person. It is said that a shooting star is a man who, after his death, lived in heaven in the good graces of an Apakari, but who has now been hurled down by his sweet companion, his period of bliss having expired. 5. Subterranean spirits. Gulai. 1. Gulai. He is a spirit who presides over buried treasure. He comes out in the shape of an adjunct bird and wanders about at night in search of food. In the beak of this bird, there burns a fire which shows him the way. 2. Incantations and expulsion of spirits. Let me, at the beginning, give an account of the symptoms of possession by some of the spirits. Parrot. The victim is afflicted with itches, boils, etc., or has an attack of quartan fever. Chaman. The eyes of the victim turn yellow. His face is flushed. Alakani. The victim has a painful aching sensation in his stomach. Bura Dangaria. The victim feels pain in the head, chest, waist, and limbs. The pain is so acute that the man has not the power to stoop. Katar. The victim who is a child is attacked with convulsive fits. A male Katar possesses even an adult man during sleep, causing him to groan and utter distressing sounds. Prasuta. The victim, who is a pregnant woman, is seized with fever. She suffers from swelling of the limbs. She feels always drowsy. A woman possessed by Prasuta is afflicted with other painful symptoms also. Datsiel, or Jankaharia. The victim suffers from very high fever, attended with aching pain in both temples. This may last for 10 days or so. Pani Mangali. The eyes of the victim turn red. He behaves stupidly. grasps aimlessly with his hands, and plays with sweepings, rags, dust, etc. Bhoot. The victim suffers from an acute attack of fever. Alakani. The victim feels as if a stone were forcing its way up into his heart from his stomach and is greatly pained. When possessed by a male Alakani, he becomes almost unconscious with agony for a time. The following books of incantations are used to expel spirits: Karsalaban, Bishnuban, Saryaban, Kerban, Rudraban, Shakraban. Let me describe some of the methods of exorcism with the above books. A. Karsalaban. Karsala is a kind of grass. The possessed man is struck with this grass, duly enchanted. The spirit then makes his retreat. B. Gubaruaban. Literally a beetle arrow. 3 beetles are killed and squeezed to powder, and then are mixed ceremonially with mustard oil and alkaline water. This mixture, sprinkled on the body of the possessed man, expels the spirit. C. Agniban. Literally, fire arrow. A torch is prepared of titabahak twigs, the flame being held up. A quantity of mustard seed is thrown over the fire in such manner that sparks are let off and fall on the body of the possessed man, the usual incantations being repeated in the meantime. D. Jalban. Literally, water arrow. The rib of a dried plantain leaf is burnt to ashes, which are mixed with a quantity of hubble-bubble water, the mixture being sprinkled on the eyes of the possessed man with proper incantations makes the spirit retire. E. Karikaban. Literally, arrow of thatching grass. A quantity of thatching grass is enchanted and cast on the body of the possessed man when the spirit runs away. F. Bishnuban. Garlic, onion, and certain other medicinal roots are pulverized and mixed with mustard oil and water. The mixture is sprinkled on the body of the possessed man with proper incantations. The spirit then leaves the victim and repairs to his haunt. G. Sariaban. Literally, mustard arrow. The exorcist takes a quantity of mustard seeds in his mouth and blows them towards the possessed man through a sieve placed in front of him, uttering certain incantations meanwhile. The mustard falling on the possessed man causes a burning sensation. The spirit, unable to bear the pain, leaves his victim. H. Kerban. Literally, straw arrow. A quantity of straw, duly enchanted, is thrown at the possessed man. This, when it hits him, makes the spirit fly for life. I. Rudraban. Mustard seeds, orris, and certain other medicinal roots are pulverized and mixed, diluted with mustard oil. The mixture, when sprinkled on the man's eyes, makes the spirit depart to the place from which it came. J. Chakraban. This mode of exorcism is much the same as the above. In time of emergency, the exorcist uses only short incantations called dikas. The following dikas are in use: Sanidika, Kaldika, Rudradika, Narasingadika, and Brahmadika. The following are some of the principal books of incantations used to expel spirits: Adi Narasinga, Chasasti Narasinga, Ajapa Narasinga, Balia Narasinga, Samudai, Pakshiraj, Garuri, Belahai Bejini, Garba Daran, Kanchan, Kalap, Pani Bajini. To expel a catarrh from the body of a woman, the following medicine is used, proper incantations being repeated during the preparation. A. Water drawn from 7 different ghats. B. Oil collected from 7 different shops. C. Bent grass. D. Rice prepared from paddy dried in the sun. These are mixed together, A mystic thread is prepared and is dipped in the mixture. The woman drinks the mixture and wears the mystic thread on her neck. In the event of the exorcist having to deal with a formidable spirit, he employs the following method. He puts a quantity of chili seeds and mustard grain inside a jika fruit and, by blowing it with his mouth, forces them out. This makes the possessed man sneeze. The spirit then says through the mouth of the possessed man that he is ready to go if a puja is offered. This is done, and the spirit, true to his word, leaves the man. Let me observe en passant that sneezing by the person operated on is, in this mode of exorcism, considered to be a sure sign of possession. Another test of possession is that the man becomes restless when made to lie down on leaf of a barkachu plant duly enchanted. Possession is also indicated by a certain number of bell leaves pressed against the navel of the man, engendering an amount of pain which he cannot bear. Besides the Hindu spirits, Kaabish, which is a Muslim spirit, is also seen to possess a man, as said above. In that case, he is expelled by means of the ordinary Hindu incantation, with only this exception, that instead of a Hindu god, the name of the Mohammedan divinity Allah occurs at the end of each verse. When the mystic thread is prepared, there are certain signs by which it can be known whether the possessed man will survive or succumb. If the mixture of oil and water with which the mystic thread is anointed turn white, the man will come round. Should it, however, turn black, the man will die. If the upper end of the mystic thread be found shorter than the lower end, the victim is almost sure to die. Besides the books of incantations referred to in another place, there is another book called Sleeping Arrow, Nidraban. No particular mode of exorcism is described in it. It contains incantations, which, when repeated, causes the possessed man to fall into a slumber, during which the exorcist gains sufficient time to prepare for the spectral warfare. In the case of a pregnant woman possessed by Markutya, the victim gets fever, burning sensation, and looseness of bowels. The embryo is then spoilt. She recovers, however, when proper incantations are repeated or a mystic thread is used. This spirit has to be expelled in the 3rd or 5th month of pregnancy, or else it is hard to save the children born from his fatal grip. A whip, being enchanted, is allowed freedom of movements, a man holding it in his hand. He is a mere tool subservient to the command of the whip. The whip then goes and strikes the victim mercilessly until the spirit makes a clean break and says who he is, why he is there, and what he wants. Proper offerings being provided, he goes off and the man is himself again. The exorcist asks the spirit to show a visible sign by which all may be sure of his departure. The spirit then breaks off a twig of the nearest tree or shows whatever sign the exorcist asks him to show. When a spirit possesses a man, a quantity of hair of his head is tied into a knot by any layman, who then, addressing the spirit, names the exorcist whom he intends to call. If the spirit knows him to be too powerful for him, he turns tail, grows restless, and asks to have the exorcist brought in at once. 3. Supplementary Notes. 1. The spirit fears the rifle. Hence, in a case of ghostly phenomenon, we hear of volleys of fire. It is known to all that elephant keepers, when out in the forest, fire their rifles to scare away spirits. 2. Instances of domesticated ghosts are not rare. These live in the shape of common rats. When the master seeks to punish an enemy, he summons them, puts them inside an earthen pot, stealthily walks into his enemy's house, and lets the rats loose, unnoticed by anybody. The rats, entering into the belly of the man, of course mystically, set themselves to eat into his vitals, leading him eventually into death. 3. When a dot lives in a bamboo clump and wants to frighten a passerby, he shakes the bamboo as a strong blast would. But curiously enough, not a single bamboo is blown down. 4. The Katar has long teeth like spikes. Sometimes he assumes horrible shapes when the poor child, his victim, gets frightened and weeps. Sometimes he bursts into laughter when the child takes the infection and laughs with him. 5. A mystic takes a number of duck eggs to a graveyard and there lays them in a cavity dug upon a grave on a Saturday or a Tuesday. After a period of 3 days, the eggs are brought back and kept inside a cotton bale, where they are hatched in due course. The offspring are, however, rats, not ducklings. These rats must always be satisfied with suitable offerings of food and drink, or else the master runs the risk of being himself destroyed by his own protégés. 6. The Kanda has 2 eyes set upon the breast which sparkle like the eyes of a fierce tiger. He wanders about dancing a hideous dance. Sometimes he is seen to dart off at full speed with outbursts of horrible laughter and unearthly shrieks. 7. The spectral bag of the dot is a round little thing made of net cloth. 8. Besides incantations, the dot is afraid of weapons of iron. The rest of the spirits can be conquered by incantations only. 9. The dot and Baak do not generally kill a man. They belabor him mercilessly and leave him alone to shift for himself as best he can. The Bhoot assumes different shapes and enters into the body of the victim after frightening him. It is the Katar who is most skilled in the art of changing his shape. The Chaman and the Jak are not good at this, while Markuchya is a moderate performer. 10. The spirits have a dialect of their own. For example, a Chudmam has Benbunka Uka for a dog, Jerjerua Uka for a fowl, Hamaya Aya Uka for a pig. When a Chaman possessing a man is questioned by the exorcist as to what he means to do, he replies in his appropriate tongue. 11. The spirits have wives and children like men. They have no hierarchy of castes among them. 12. The Dot and Baak visit stealthily the fishing traps set by men and eat the fish caught in them. They are sometimes seen to be so audacious as to eat silk cocoons out of a bag while it is being carried by a man. They also eat shells. 13. A Jokhini dances and makes gestures. She does not sing. 14. Sometimes a male Katar visits a woman and a female Katar a man. They make illicit proposals. If the man or the woman, as the case may be, accepts the proposal, the spirit takes away in the act the lifeblood of the victim, who is led as a result into wreckage and ultimate death. 15. The spirits cast no shadow on the ground, as men do. 16. A spirit has only one wife. A female spirit has only one husband. Adultery is not allowed. 17. In certain cases, the spirit recites the very incantations which the exorcist is about to recite and taunts him in other ways. 18. A dot is sometimes seen to come to a market and make purchases in the shape of an ordinary man. 19. To propitiate the nymph Apakari, the women of the locality assemble and hold a service, offering a quantity of powdered rice and 9 bunches of plantains. 20. The spirit kills the exorcist when his ill luck would so have it. All exorcists have to live under constant fear of devils who seek opportunity to injure them. A spirit has been heard to say to his exorcist, "I am here to kill this man. Surely you meddle in an evil hour." 21. The spirit who takes a woman away does not keep her always, but sends her back to her home. She is in this way restored after being kidnapped. 22. Mayang is a Mausa lying in the district of Naogong. It has been noted for witchcraft for years. The people keep Dainee and other spirits in their houses. They send them to any man whom they want to injure. They bring good things from other houses by sending a Dainee. This emissary is offered a puja and is sent out on her mission with these words: "Back when I bid you, away with my enemy unless he calls on me and satisfies my demand." The people have places reserved in the dark, secluded part of their houses for puja to the ghosts. I note below some of the preternatural doings of the Mayang people. A. The half-burnt wooden pegs on which the cooking pot is rested take root, and the rice is never done, although the fire is full red. B. A man's seat sticks to him and does not drop off until the mystic recites counter incantations. C. A tree stands, although cut through, and falls only when the enemy whom the mystic wishes to injure comes up to it. D. A cooked pigeon, when eaten, becomes alive inside the stomach and, flapping its wings incessantly, kills the man. E. When a man eats rice and milk, this is never digested but takes root in the stomach. He dies within 6 months. F. A rib of a plantain leaf is turned into a snake. G. The leaves of the surya tree are turned into kalia and kawai fishes. The mystic keeps a number of ghosts. These are constantly coming in and going out on their errands by turns. The usual method of destruction by a Dainee is that the victim is subjected to an acute form of dysentery. The disease grows severer every day, and the man ultimately dies. 4. Stories. 1. In Golaghat, there is a family whose forefathers were reputed to be ghost keepers. They are still known as the House of Ghosts. The matron of the house had charge of them. The ghosts lived in a mango tree in the orchard, and when they came down from it, assumed the shape of rats or kindred small creatures, ate food offered by their mistress, all in a pell-mell fashion, and returned to their haunt. 2. Once a Dainee, assuming the form of a woman, met a traveler and bore him company, keeping behind him. She irresistibly felt the temptation of eating human flesh, so much so that her lips protruded. These, however, she advisedly reverted to their normal size by rubbing them against her arm. The man happened to look back and saw that it was a fiend that followed him. The Dainee, perceiving that the cat was out of the bag, disappeared. 3. A chaman was walking slowly in the shape of a naga, heavily laden with a basket on his back. He accosted a man and said, "Tell my eldest brother his wife is dead." He also gave the address of his brothers, said to be 6 in number, as a certain huge tree in a particular locality. The man could see no house in the place mentioned, but he shouted so as to be heard far and wide, "The wife of the eldest brother is dead. Know ye whomsoever it may concern." Suddenly a blast shook the tree, and piteous wailings rent the sky. The traveler understood the import and hastened his way homeward. 4. There are 12 scores of Jak in the Barpeta Bill in Naugong. A notable Bakat named Balaram Diori lived in the Satra. For an offense against piety, he became a Jak on his death and proceeded to the Barpeta Bill. But the other Jaks dubbed him the blackest devil as having committed an offense against piety and refused him admittance. Many Bakats, seeing his pitiable position, argued his cause, but to no purpose. The Gossain himself came to the scene. The newly arrived Jak recounted the facts and added that he was sentenced to live with Jaks for 1 year. Out of compassion, the good Gossain reduced the sentence to 6 months and ordered the resident Jaks to allow him a place in the bill. 5. A man was calling his brother Banmali by name when suddenly a ghost appeared before him and began to laugh aloud. After a while he paused and said, "Bandamali, what a nice name! If this should ever reach the ear of my 4 brothers, whose names are the filth of a duck, the feather of a pigeon, the filth of an otter, a broken jumpy, they will laugh and laugh till their sides split." 6. A man once saw a Pisachani sitting as a wretchedly dressed, gray-haired old woman absorbed in thought, with the palm of her hand pressed against her head. 7. A man once saw a Nauch party held by 5 Alakanis. 3 of them clapped their hands, and the other 2 danced to the music. 8. A man was sleeping one night across his doorway. A Garajuti came near in the shape of a baby of about 2 years and tried to pass over him, but suddenly paused. In this way, there was a continual process of attempt and pause until after a time the man awoke. He removed his bed from the doorway. 9. 2 brothers were out in a boat fishing in a river. The younger brother held the net at the bow, while the elder sat at the helm. A drought came, killed the elder brother, himself assumed his shape and steered the boat as before, the younger brother having no knowledge whatever of the ghostly interference. Many fishes were caught by the younger brother and deposited in the boat, but these the drought kept on eating secretly all the while. The younger brother noticed the low level of the fish and realized that something had happened to his brother. But he very prudently went on as if nothing had happened. The drought was outwitted. He took the man for a simpleton and, putting confidence in him, handed over his spectral bag to him for custody. Taking the bag in his hand, the younger brother said to the drought, "You are at my mercy, you miserable wretch." The man thought within himself that it would not be wise to give out the melancholy news of his brother's death, especially when he could manage to make the spirit pass for his brother. So he and the spirit went home together and lived peaceably as brothers, none else having the slightest inkling of what had taken place. The younger brother kept the spectral bag in a mustard barn. Time passed, and the spirit kept on trying all sorts of means to obtain the bag if possible. At last, it so happened that the younger brother attended a mill at a distance. The drought also started for the mill, but hurried back to the home and said to his victim's mother, "The bag, the bag, the bag in the mustard barn. Plenty of coins in the mill. Well, where's the place for them?" The simple mother took him at his word and gave him the bag. The drought took the bag, became himself again, and proceeded to the woods. The younger brother returned from the mill. His mother said, "Where is your brother? I gave him the bag that was in the mustard barn." Her son sighed a deep sigh and said, "No, poor mother, your eldest son died the moment you gave up the bag." So saying, he recounted the sad incident of his brother's death from start to finish. 10. A drought visited a Brahmin girl in the form of her lover and eloped with her. In course of time, she became the mother of 2 children by the drought. A little before the birth of the 3rd child, the woman asked him to procure her a fish from a certain distant place, as she desired to eat one. The drought set out to get the fish, and meantime the woman with her sons, seizing this opportunity of her spirit husband's absence, hastened to her parents' home. The drought returned with a fish, but found no one in the house. He traced the woman to her parents' house, the fish still in his hand. He got on the roof, made an opening, and dropped the fish through, saying, "Take it, inconstancy thy nature." Then he retraced his steps homewards. The limbs of this woman's sons were sluggish and bore long streaks all over like those of a spirit. 11. The drought fears a fishhook. Once, as a drought was trying to eat a fish out of a bag carried by a man on his back, he got entangled in the fishing line, and the hook pierced his belly. The drought, being thus enslaved, obtained release by abject entreaties. 12. A ghost assumed the shape of an old man and visited his house in his absence. He stood on the courtyard and asked the wife to wash his feet. They were smooth, unlike those of her old husband, which the wife knew to be very rugged. She suspected something was wrong, looked up and saw a very tall figure. At once she entered the house on the pretext of bringing more water, bolted the door, and screamed. The drought said, "You are lucky, you are lucky," and vanished into thin air. 13. A ghost appeared to a man in a dream and said, "Keep your young daughter on the grass upon a cloth spread out. I shall come and take her away, and in exchange will put on the cloth plenty of riches for you." The man did not comply with this request, as was to be expected. The girl died in less than a week. 14. There was a commotion recently in Golaghat, owing to the appearance of a ghost in the house of one Dewai Tekela in the village Kangia, Mautsa Naharani. The ghost stayed in the house for 3 years. People from distant places visited the house, and after a due inquiry were satisfied with the genuineness of this incident. The visitation of the ghost had particular reference to a married girl of 16. Her husband was living with her. Clods of earth used to be thrown at her by the ghost. She could actually see him, although no one else did. She was never kidnapped by him, and he never molested her while she stayed at her father's house. Her father-in-law died a year before this incident. The ghost said to her, "I am your father-in-law. I come to see you out of love." The ghost occasionally played pranks. He concealed cups and plates and even valuable ornaments, but he was sometimes useful. He looked to the comfort of the guests and provided them with seats, pan, etc., but when any guest insulted him, he scattered bat over him. When bat was served to a member of the family, the ghost ate it up before curry arrived. The cook took the hint, reserved a dish specially for the ghost, and then all annoyance ceased. The bat disappeared from the reserved dish in the sight of all men. 15. The Hindu god Shiva lived in Mount Kailas with his wife Parvati. Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and the wife of Vishnu, paid a visit to Parvati when Shiva was absent. During the course of conversation, Lakshmi referred to Shiva slightingly, he being but a beggar after all. Parvati, in reply, expressed her contempt for Vishnu. Lakshmi came home and related to her husband what had happened. Vishnu, who knew well that Shiva's poverty was the result of his unparalleled piety and absolute indifference to temporal possessions, said to Lakshmi, "Let me devise a means by which Parvati will be humiliated. At the same time there will be plenty of harvest for men to eat on earth." He commanded 4 Siddhas to visit Shiva's house during the absence of the latter, and on some pretext to ask for a quantity of rice. These immediately hurried to Kailas and asked Parvati for some rice, so that they might refresh themselves after so tiresome a journey. Parvati, finding not a grain of rice in her house, gave them some fruits to eat. The guests departed, but Parvati felt humiliated. When Shiva came home, she asked him to procure the necessary implements of agriculture and to grow rice. She advised him to obtain a plot of land from Indra, a bag of rice seedlings from Kuvera, and a plow from Balaram. The rope of Varuna was to be his plow rope, the chakra of Vishnu his yoke, and the serpent Basuki his whip. He was instructed to get the buffalo of Yama and yoke it with his own bullock. His trident was to be his plowshare. His son Kartik was to be his plowboy. Parvati herself was to cook the rice. Shiva was well pleased and accepted these suggestions of his wife. He collected all the implements of husbandry and began at cockcrow to cultivate his field. He was so absorbed in his new occupation that he ignored the calls of appetite. When it was past noon, Parvati created a body of mosquitoes and wasps and commanded them to invade the field so that Shiva might leave the plow and come home. Shiva, seeing the fierce onset, made a torch and whirled it violently so that the insects fled for their lives. Parvati, finding that her object failed, created an army of earthworms, leeches, rats, and crickets. But Shiva was too much engrossed in his business to mind such annoyances. Parvati now proceeded in person to find her husband. She found the field covered with all manner of crops in various stages of growth. But as soon as her indignant eyes fell upon the crops, there came out from her mouth a demon and a demoness named Khoba-Khubi, who set the whole field in a blaze. Shiva turned back and, seeing the couple of fiends, wanted to kill them. They prayed for mercy and added that as they were the offspring of his wife's mind, it behooved him to spare their lives. Shiva admitted this, but told them to leave the field at once and take up their residence in the Dainee hills. With regard to the question of food, he said, "Be in the mouths of men born in inauspicious moments and eat your food there." Shiva and Parvati returned home. Ages passed, and Kama's faithful attendant Hanuman took the Dainee hills, among others, to bridge the sea. Khoba-Khubi, who were in the hills, went with them. They entreated Rama to allow them a country to live in and suitable food to subsist on. Rama directed them to live among men and to eat the food assigned to them by Shiva. He gave them also something more. He said, "Live with the bridegroom till the 3rd day of marriage. when a service will take place in which eatables will be distributed among those assembled. Eat enough and leave the couple to themselves. The custom of holding the above service, in which a Brahmin priest recounts the story of Khoba-Khubi to the married couple, is universal with the Assamese. The story of Khoba-Khubi originally appeared in the Nandi Purana, from which it has been translated into Assamese. The crop which was burnt by the appearance of Khoba-Khubi came to be known as Ahu, the other being Sali, which is the staple crop of the Assamese. 16. There lived a king who had a beautiful wife named Kamala. His kingdom was visited by intense drought and many lives were lost. Jalkor, who was smitten with the beauty of the queen, appeared in a dream to the king and said that he would send water if the king would part with his consort. The king at first refused, but when the drought continued and the people implored him to save their lives at any cost, he yielded. The people excavated a tank, and the queen proceeded to it in a magnificent procession, followed by the king and by immense crowds. The queen went down into the tank. The king stood on the bank, and as the water gradually rose, the following conversation ensued. "How much water do you mete? Say, Kamala, my consort sweet. Hearken ye, my husband dear, water is now ankle near. How much water do you find? Say, Kamala, ever kind. My beloved lord, list ye, water kisses now my knee. How much water does now spring? Say unto me, my darling. My lord, on heart enthroned high, water has now reached my thigh. My heart, Kamala, breaks for thee, oh say how much water you see. My sweet master, shed not tear, water is now loin near. Ah me, hear my mournful lay, how much water rushes, say. Is not fate supreme yet found? Water ties my breast around. Be not sad, my queen of spring, how much water does Jalkor bring? All is over, I bow to thee, water encircles my neck, now see." Suddenly a golden barge appeared, and the queen was taken on board and vanished from sight. Appendixes. Appendix 1. Song of Alakani. Tick, tick, titapat. It rains. There's mire. Ah me, men will see. But what may they say? Appendix 2. Incantation used in weaving spectral thread. I salute thee, O Krishna. 1. I bind the 11. 2. I bind the 2 directions. 3. I bind the triangular earth. 4. I bind the 4 cardinal points. 5. I bind the 5 demons. 6. I bind the 64 gypsies. 7. I bind the 100 stars. 8. I bind the 8 ghats. 9. I bind the 9 stars. 10. I bind the Lord of 10 directions. 11. I bind the 11 mothers. 12. I bind the motley crowd. 13. I bind the 13 celestial nymphs. 14. I bind 14 phases of the moon. 15. I bind the 15 stars. 16. I bind the 16 ghats. 17. I bind the 17 moons. 18. I bind the 18 pathways. 19. I bind the 19 ghats. 20. I bind the 10 gates. Should none these avail, I bind by the 64 incantations. Shiva himself on the east rampart, the sun on the west rampart. Death himself out of compassion on the south Durga on the north rampart. Should my words come to grief, the purity of the goddess will be dashed off. By my adjuration and my preceptor's command, remain where I bind.